All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another edition of Breaking the Baits. It's so good for everybody to be here. We're glad that you're going to take the time out to watch our video again. This is episode 97. I have with me Miss MademB.
Hey, laugh.
And I got Ken on the scene with me too. So we're going to hit this topic. We're going to have a great discussion. This video is going to be a little bit unique. As it's kind of specific, but it's kind of not. It's kind of open-ended. And the question that we're going to be posing, or I'm posing to everyone, is what franchises out there deserve their own cinematic universe? Those who, for more in-depth on what I thought about it, I do have a video, and I'm going to leave that description box below. So check that out. But I wanted to just ask everyone here on the panel what their thoughts is on different series, different franchises that deserve their own cinematic universe. Because Marvel and DC aren't the only ones.
No, there's many. I mean, we've gotten just prior to coming on, we were talking about like Harry Potter for say, Star Wars, Star Trek, science fiction series. Stargate is another good one. Which most people they kind of already consider them, but they don't really think of. They think of them as just a series.
Yeah,
and they just say, okay, I just watched that series, and then you kind of go, but it's like watching. Have you watched The Punisher yet?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Loved it. A little different. I wasn't quite expecting some of the side stuff going on in there, but it was an interesting story. But that's a series within a universe or a franchise, I guess you could say. Or would that be a franchise within a universe? Let's say like your X-Men, Punisher, because you have all these separate entities within the combined universe. They all have their own little storylines. Are we going to be more defining? Like, say, Harry Potter per se is not part of any known. It's its own entity, its own world. Because I think you've got several other series of books tied into that Rowling's writing right now, and some sub-authors who have written some material. But it's a very broad spectrum. We got a lot of stuff that we could throw out there.
Because if you think about like with the Star Wars, there are the various trilogies that they have, and now they're starting to fill in the gaps with personal stories with certain characters.
Yeah,
like we were talking about Vader possibly having a movie. We were talking about
Obi-Wan,
and then of course got the Han Solo movie.
That's coming.
So
the new trilogy that was just announced in the near future.
Yeah.
So director of Star Wars / Rogue One.
So Star Wars got its Star Wars, I could say, is a cinematic universe. Then
within its own world, you have the movies, the known movies 1 through 7 currently, 8 coming out in just a few days, which I can't wait for. Then you have the expanded universe, and you have the extended universe. You have 3 depths of story. One is the movies that you've seen. The other one is stuff that's kind of filling in the information of the movies. What's a Rancor, how Jabba the Hutt and all. But then you have that expanded universe, which is what happened when the Empire collapsed. We're seeing in Rogue, it's not Rogue, sorry, in episode 7, we're seeing the First Order showing up. But when, sometime in between Vader taking up his reign, the Federation, boy, that was a crossover. The Order being shut down. There was a bunch of stuff going on after that, where Solo, before we see him, we had all these different races becoming a prominent character in the Star Wars universe. Same thing with the Star Trek. We've had different series, same concept, but we've had all these different series like Deep Space Nine, Enterprise, Voyager. We saw, when it began, what's going on, and we've had an extended timeline in that series. Great franchise, yes. Universe, pretty much. You might as well call it a universe because you have all these little worlds built up on there. There's just, it's just, it's kind of hard to say. Do you want to create them as a universe, a franchise? I mean, it's really.
I mean, because think about it, Star Trek is actually pretty big, and yes, they do have their different like series, but they're all set in the same universe. They're just seen from different.
They're all there. It's just what we're seeing with say Star Wars is a timeline that we've watched evolve from episode 1 all the way to episode 7, and then the gaps are being filled in with, let's say, Rogue One, the Solo series, maybe an Obi-Wan, maybe there's a lot of different little characters that we all like, but we want to know more about. I like Vader. I love bad guys in movies, but again, what happened? When we see him in Rogue One, he's just pretty much at that point, probably within a few years of being converted to Vader.
Yeah.
And we see a very brief, two good encounters, which are great, phenomenal. But I want to see more. I want to know more of what's going on, more about the character. And there's so much they've dived into the expanded universe into that, which is really, really cool. But we do have a lot of good series out there that are not Marvel, not DC, Star Wars, or Star Trek. We do have a lot of science fiction ones too. But like I say, I think one of your examples was when we were talking about the movies, the horror movies. Chucky. In his own little world, Jason Voorhees, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, I'm gonna let her chime in. But then I'm gonna come back about that. I throw that out there.
I was gonna say so I can understand. So it's kind of like they're all together in their universe, in their little cinematic universe. They just usually like break them up into their own little like spin-offs, such as
they'll have their individual stories, but then they have stories interacting with each other too.
Yeah, you have this giant storyline or giant world, but it's like having subcontinents or subsections of that giant world. Like Marvel, we have this whole giant world that's been created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and all these guys, and they created these wonderful characters. And there's like hundreds of these characters. Some do not have their own series of books like The Punisher or Marvel. They're just kind of sub-characters. And like right now we're seeing, Daredevil, all these separate series, Daredevil, Punisher, Inhumans, these are all characters, groups of characters have their own world, but they're part of the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And they fall into play in there. We're all going to die of the cold.
I was talking to her and I thought I did talk about it in a video. I said, this is what they should do. And I got the idea based off of the Freddy versus Jason premise and based off that conversation we had, Freddy and Jason. All of those movie monsters, those movie monsters, I think they should have their cinematic universe. Like if you think about it, Pumpkinhead, Wishmaster.
Well, they have in their case, I think they have their own like cult following. I mean,
because think about it, how many people want some of these characters to cross over? And everybody loved the Freddy versus Jason.
Yeah, I mean, yes,
but I will admit it would have to be it had to be good. It had to be somebody that can make a decent. It got to be a good director and a good writer. But it's also got to make sense. And I thought about it too with Stephen King. All Stephen King stuff. All of it
ties together because if you read the Dark Tower, it all incorporates anyway. At some point in time,
Christine, Cujo, like everything is all in the same universe. So he got his own little cinematic universe.
That's a good example of Stephen King.
No, what you say?
No, I was like, so if they have their universe and seeing as they're like supernatural beings, you wouldn't want it too over the top, would you?
It just depends on the story. Okay. It just depends on the story.
You have to make it. I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street started as kind of a serious, kind of scary movie, but everybody liked the Robert Englund character of Freddy, and like the humor that he brought with it, that sick, twisted humor with it. And so that's where your cult following came from. All these people jumped on that bandwagon to like Freddy because he was funny. Yeah, he was slashing people up, but I mean, became humorous. And again, the first few Jason's Friday the 13th series, the same thing happened. You know, it was supposed to be kind of a, 80s scary movie. But then after, how he killed everybody's like, yeah, we're going to keep up with it. And they started kind of stepping outside that, trying to be a serious bound and actually put a lot more dark humor into it. And you've seen that evolve in several other series. And Chucky was completely, that was made to be scary, but it was just coated in a dark humor because of the way that, all the bad stuff that ever happened to him.
Yeah. I would say the first two were kind of horror slasher based. And then it kind of went more dark comedy after those two.
Yeah, everybody kind of jumped on that bandwagon. And then keeping it in that world, I mean, you could have them existing in the same time frame, in the same world. All those characters. Jason Voorhees, we know he was around in the 80s. Freddy was around in the 80s, time frame wise, and in reality of their time. Same thing with all those type of characters. Pumpkinhead, I'm not sure because it was kind of a different environment with Pumpkinhead, but all those characters could exist within that horror space universe time frame and all about the same time. And you can mix match them a lot. But it would be kind of like, what was that movie? It was a comedy, but it was Jack Black played the author. Goosebumps.
Yeah. Goosebumps is a good example.
Well, how Goosebumps, we've seen all these characters. If you ever watched a TV show on Nickelodeon, which, I did, you watched all these shows, but then you saw the movie. We took all those worlds, or each book, put all those characters together into a movie, and it worked. It made sense.
Yes.
That's a really good example. I don't even know where it came out of my brain, but yeah,
just look at that.
It's like, what?
You're right. That's a really good example.
I mean, that's like right on. That's exactly what we're talking about. Is you have all these stories under the Goosebumps world, but none of them really tie together. But in this case, they put it all together as the author had all these books trying to keep everything away. But no one story ties them together. The commonality is that they're all trying to get back at him. So, a good formula was good. And in fact, actually, I'm standing making a Goosebumps too. I don't know how soon that's in a production, but
I actually hope they do.
I enjoyed it. I watched the series with my kid and then myself, and each story is unique to itself. But I liked how they mixed it all together, and they put all these characters in there. And some of them, like, I don't remember that one, or they're little spotty characters, not the really popular ones, stories. But it was a good mixture. They put everything together, and it flowed smoothly. It made sense. And so in our universe,
the problem I have with that is they kind of put a little bit too many characters in it.
Yeah, I mean that's going to happen with something like that, though. That's what you were talking about a minute ago, where you said, yeah, we could put all these characters together, but it's got to make sense. There's got to be some logic to it. It's got to have a good storyline that makes sense of why all these, Jason or Freddy or Ash or any of these other characters are all put together in that movie. Yeah,
I get behind. Like, I never liked the whole Ash versus Freddy versus Jason.
But I wish they would have made it. I would have actually liked to have seen that. That was one I would actually probably really watch.
Like, if they actually did it like this, like all of that stuff actually happened in the same universe, and it kind of came across each other. Okay, yeah, it would make sense.
It'd be like a movie we talked about in the classic movie Monsters.
Yeah.
Where all the monsters came together out of the blue to get back at Van Helsing for screwing him over. Same thing you could do with Ash is the kind of in retirement, and all these Freddy and all them start showing up, tying that universe in together, and he's gonna have to go kick their ass, which would be great because I love him. He's such a great character. He's so funny, but yet he's like, come get some. Shop smart. Shop S smart. Love it.
It wouldn't be impossible. It would just have to make sense, right?
Yeah, it would just.
Yeah, you just can't throw them all together.
If they would do that, because if they would do that, it's gonna be the two. It's gonna be two. The movies would be either two ways. It'll be somebody that wrote it to be actually good, and there'll be somebody that just put it out there to be fan service.
That's exactly what
as I like.
That's exactly what I like.
Freddy vs. Jason. As much as the concept of them two fighting was like written cool, but there was a lot of fan service thrown in there just for the fans, just to put them together. Like another example of that is you ever see The Ring? You ever see The Grudge?
I've seen some of it, not all of it. I'm familiar enough with the story.
They made a movie where the two girls like fought each other. The two ghost girls fought each other.
That doesn't even make any sense.
I wanted to watch it, but I just ain't got around.
I couldn't get into that. That's just completely two different lines of that don't make sense lines. There's no reason for that. That's just somebody, again, as we call it, fan service, your term. That's exactly what that is.
I'm gonna ask you this then, and I said this in a video. What if they rebooted the AVP series? Do you think they could cinematic universe that? Because that does have a lot of content.
I was just reading, oddly, that you bring that up. They were talking about the Predators movie, and then it's not necessarily a complete reboot, but it's going to dive into the world of the Predators that we have not seen. Their motivations, their directions, and all that world that they create. And we talked about, we wanted to see more about the hunter who came in AVP 1 to clean up the mess. And we saw like a little brief of their home world.
That was 2. But yeah, he was awesome.
And seeing that, and now we want to go into they want to bring into more of the Predators and show more of their world. And I was reading a little bit on that this week, in between jobs and stuff. And I was like, I would like to see that. I want to see that expanded. We've seen the alien world so many times. Granted, I mean, we've seen Prometheus, and all this, the newer movies that gives us a little more background of where they may have come from. But the Predator one is what I want to see. That's what I want to jump on the bandwagon.
This is why I want to reboot it. Want them to reboot it. Reboot it anyway. But I think they should reboot it because I think the AVP series still got potential to it. And one of the reasons why it failed is because the Alien series and the Predator series were made to be standalone series. And then when they tried to cross them over, it didn't. Neither series supported it the way the movies were shot.
Yeah, you got inklings of it in Predators 2 at the very end with Danny Glover, and we saw the alien head in there.
That was like a small thing. That was like a small one.
That was a tease.
Yeah.
And we've seen a couple other, crossovers in there, but we knew people who've read the comics do a much better job and much better justice to the AVP series.
Yeah.
By a long shot. The AVP 1 that we saw, the girl was actually going to end up turning a hunter anyway, and she was supposed to go with them. In the series.
What was the last name? Something Gucci, Mia Gucci or something like. I know you're talking about because she had the dreads. Yeah. Yeah,
she ends up dreading out and becomes a much dangerous person. Because she had basically nothing. The whole expedition was killed anyway. So
like a predator.
She ended up becoming a predator. Well, a respected predator because of the kill that she had at that time.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't become a predator, but she, had the outfits and the weapons.
She wore the armor and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, she had everything going on.
See, and that's why I think if they should do that with the series, with the AVP series, reboot Aliens, reboot Predator. They're in that, like, if they're going to modernize it, make it to where each series will support that. Yeah, there are predators in this universe in the Alien movie, and in the Predator movies, there are aliens in the universe.
Yep, and we definitely know they cross over because we've seen them so many times already.
Yeah, it makes sense.
All right, so to get my mind wrapped around it. Okay, the little Freddy when they came over into our universe, so to speak, and people had it was like a hard time believing it, that it was like actually happening. So are we stepping into theirs? Will we be stepping into theirs? Like, is that what you mean? Or
like they're all like with the Stephen King thing, everything's happening on the same planet. Mm-hmm. It's just that like Elm Street and Crystal Lake is in the same planet. They're just in two different places.
Okay, like what you mean by okay, when that movie I saw Dolores Claiborne, that was going on, right? And the Stephen King, and then they mentioned something about what was going on in another part of that town city. That was when Storm of the Century was happening. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, I get what you're saying. That's like just coming to, okay.
Yeah, like that's like a cinematic universe thing.
I just had to.
Yeah. Well, if you read a lot of the stories and stuff that are out there, they always talk about similar universes or crossover universes. You hear a lot of that terminology out there. What is like, especially like Marvel, is Guardians of the Galaxy happening at the same time as Thor and Asgard, as the same time as Peter Parker happening? You have this. You just have to think of it literally as a giant world. And everything is happening all over the different places, all these different stories. And that's why you had Superman in Metropolis and Batman in Gotham. Two separate cities, two different heroes, and they each have their own villains and criminals and stuff that's going on. They're happening at the same time because we know Batman and Superman exist in the same world, but their whole lives and everything are separated somehow, some way, either through distance or placement or whatever the case may be.
And every once in a while, something happened to where they'll cross paths.
Yep, Joker sneaks out to Metropolis for some kind of criminal activity, which drags Batman along. Batman meets Superman. Hey, what's going on? Yeah. But in the DC universe, we all know they kind of tie all together anyway with Justice League. Justice League was that combining of all these different characters in different areas. Mm-hmm. And as the stories continue, I mean, we've only seen a brief inkling in the movie world, but in the comic world, I mean, all these superheroes are basically in one centralized point at this point with the Justice League Tower and everything that's orbiting Earth. So at any given time, all these people have combined their abilities to be disseminated across the world to help solve different problems, instead of being stuck in Superman only in Metropolis and Batman only in Gotham and Black Panther only in Wakanda. We have all these different characters established all over the place.
Like right now, Marvel's got it to where their movies are kind of are tied together, but the television series are tied with the movies. Yeah, and DC, their movies and their TV series are different.
Very different right now.
Universes. But like with DC, they have Arrow, Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, and Supergirl. And it kind of sucks that their Black Lightning ain't gonna be a part of that. But
yeah, I kind of didn't know where they were going with Black Lightning right there.
Yeah, Arrow and Flash crossover all the time.
Yeah, Supergirl and crossover and Flash. Actually, they just did this big, huge crossover last week, I think. Crisis X or whatever it was.
Yeah, that's what I was reading about.
Yeah, they just had a big one recently.
I saw a couple episodes where Flash and Arrow crossed over.
Yep.
And then I saw the episode where Flash crossed over with Supergirl.
Yes. Learning how to use the Speed Force.
Mm-hmm. But see, that's like that right there. When we was talking about the dark universe, where they were trying to make it to all of these, the classic movie monsters were coming together, and I don't agree with the casting. Angelina Jolie don't need to be in the movie.
I think they pretty much shut down the dark universe.
She's supposed to be the bride of Frankenstein.
Yep.
And I'm not saying it because she's a bad actress. No, I think if she were to get the role, she would kill it. Mm-hmm. It's like like Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise eclipsed the Mummy. It was instead of it being a movie about the Mummy, it was about Tom Cruise. And then they had this huge name actor that they was trying to use to push the movie. It's a bad movie. You use the movie to push the movie. And, they try to get all the biggest names they can. It's like, no, don't do that.
They're trying to drag in, Johnny Depp, Angelina Jolie, Russell Crowe.
So focus on the actors and not the
Yes.
Okay.
Use the actors to sell the movie, and that's where they messed up. And well, the biggest complaint almost everyone has is because Tom Cruise was one of the biggest, if not the biggest complaint.
Right.
Like the dude Jake Johnson that was in it, the one that died.
Yeah.
The movie should have been about him. Because he's a good actor, and he's nowhere as big as Tom Cruise. Could have been his breakout.
Yeah, use the story, the character to sell the story, not the actor to sell the story.
This is something else I wanted to bring up to you too. When I was thinking about it, do you think the other comic book distributors will be able to make a cinematic universe? You got Valiant, Dark Horse, Image. What's the one that does Archie?
I
can't remember. But like
I can see their logo, and it's spacing me out. As soon as you said that, I said Dark Horse.
Do you think they can?
But you got to also think that even some of those side branded are actually the subsidiaries of the major, but they're allowed a more creative license. Like Dark Horse does a lot of the graphic novels, the extreme graphic novels of Star Wars, and there's several other titles underneath them, like Atlantis. I mean, some of them are original. Like Atlantis, I'm trying to think. Under Atlantis, The Rising, I think is what it's called, that would be a phenomenal movie aside from itself. But they do a lot of the heavier, grittier, nastier, dirty work of the some of our extended universes we already know.
Yeah.
But Infinity, I was trying to think of a couple of their series. I think those brands could create their own worlds because they do have a lot of original content on some of those. Some of it's very good. I mean, unfortunately, I don't get too much into graphic novels. As at one time when I was a really big collector of comics and everything.
Yeah.
But there are some extremely talented story writers, illustrators, and creative minds that could easily create and spawn a universe of their own. And a lot of them I have. And I'm sorry for those who do watch it and know. Yeah, well, what about that series? I don't know them all, but I have seen I've seen some extremely creative stuff, and I gotta say, I think it was called Atlantis: The Rising, as something I had just started kind of catching on to, and I have never finished the graphic novels, but it was a very well thought out. Something we've always kind of thought about. Like, and what if Atlantis decided to say enough is enough? You guys are screwing up everything, and they decide to show up and start kicking butt on the surface dwellers and clean house, and say, "I'm done. You guys are wasting this planet. Get out of here. You're not worthy." It's something that we've talked about. I've seen very, very few movies that even talk about it. But that whole, they have their own establishment and universe and everything. I mean, it's phenomenal. It's very well thought out. And I guarantee there's other graphic novels and companies from many of these other publishers that are out there. Like The Wheel of Time. It's another good one.
Yes, that's extremely big.
I mean, that's a vast world. Warhammer 40K. Have you ever read anything about that?
No, but I was thinking about downloading that game.
Your brain will explode. The people who have created Warhammer 40K have... I only briefly touched a small surface of that, and I've spent days. That was days of reading about how their system works and their histories and all kind of junk. I mean, that is a truly created universe. There are very specific characters. It would dwarf Star Wars of all the stuff that actually goes on in the complexity of that world that was created. Very mind-blowing. Very mind-blowing. I can hear some of my fans going, yeah, Warhammer. and those guys are dedicated. Let me tell you, they are some dedicated people to that series. I thought some Star Wars had some obsessive people. Warhammer's got some very obsessive fans. Very thoroughly knowledge fans.
Because I was telling her earlier, what if they had a zombie series where it was like that, like we have The Walking Dead, and what they got the Fear of the Walking Dead. What if they had?
And they happen simultaneously.
Yeah,
we know they're happening simultaneously. There's going to be a crossover. I think Morgan's going to cross over probably in the near future. If The Walking Dead doesn't make up their ratings, they're going to go down the toilet. Because I know right now they're hurting bad because the people who've read the graphic novel know where things are going to go, but they're dragging the storyline way too much. And they're like, and people are like, go on, bring the Whisperers in, bring these people in, bring these characters in. And the series has just been dragging like this little bitty portion of this whole big world. And people are getting tired of it and they're turning away from the series. I know there's more excitement about a crossover than there's anything in the world right now. They want a crossover so bad they could taste it. and it's true. And you know, we were talking, you know, what would be great? We know that they happen simultaneously. We know that one's West Coast. We know one is East Coast. And that's just how they did the series. And somewhere they're going to end up meeting somewhere eventually. So, there are plenty of stories. Even branching into games, which I kind of wish that they're kind of adapting the movies or television series. We talked about Halo, massive. Yes. Oh man, yes.
They got Fallout. It's an established world. You can have individual stories, and they do interconnect you in the games.
Yep, all the vaults, all the different vaults, and different worlds from the vaults.
Oh, Halo and Fallout connect?
No, I like the Fallout games. Even though they're in different locations, they are connected.
Okay.
Like there will be certain groups that will be here, and then in this game, something will happen to that group, and then you might see the remnants of it in another game.
Yep.
Or something that happened in this game, you'll see how it affected another area. Yeah. Like biggest example in Fallout 3, you meet the principal group of the Brotherhood of Steel, and then in Fallout 4, you meet what they evolved into. They evolved to this big armada, this big army. Like in Fallout 2. You meet the Enclave, then you meet them again in Fallout 3. Fallout 2, they have the super mutant army, then they get defeated, and then you end up meeting the remnants in Fallout 3. No, not Fallout 3. You meet the remnants in Fallout New Vegas. But Fallout is a established world where you can have all these individual stories. And it have them interconnected.
Think about BioShock.
BioShock's another example. That's a weird game, but
I would love to see the first one made into a movie. I was really getting into that. I was like, man, that'd be, you know, again, we have these cool franchises and their own little worlds or pocket universes. But you know, that's a phenomenal story. That's original. It's like something I've been waiting for. You know, I'm so tired of aliens invading me or we invading aliens or zombies attacking. Give me something original. Put some thought into something and come out with some original material that we haven't seen before. Give us something cool. I mean, we have very current themes, but give me something, you know, content like Big Daddies and Little Sisters, and you know, give me something I can chew on that's new and different, and I haven't seen it already.
Okay, what you said about the Resident Evil and the movies, books, and games. Like
if they were to reboot the Resident Evil series and do like they did, I don't mind them deviating from the games. I don't mind it. But like people were complaining about how the games and stuff will always follow certain characters. And I was like, it doesn't make sense because this is a worldwide event. Some of these games need to be taking place in areas where people don't know what's going on.
What do half the games, like who do they follow? Like
the main every game always follows either Leon or Chris
or Claire.
And Claire.
Okay.
Claire, yeah, those are like the major 4 characters. Yeah, almost every game is going to be one of those characters in it. The only one that wasn't one of those characters was the Resident Evil 7 that came out, I think, last year. There was a totally new person. But I like I was saying, if they like one of the problems with the movies were every movie followed Alice.
Yep.
Should have been Alice. One movie should have been Leon in a different area. One movie, or perhaps like
they could have done all the major characters in their own little moment. You know, give me an hour and a half, 2 hours in their moment building, and then interconnect them all and maybe a grand finale movie or complete the storyline. Give me like chapter 1, that's Alice. Give me chapter 2, it's Leon. Got chapter 3, it's so and so, and then or even maybe 2 characters, give or take, to kind of clean it up, and then put them all together and go, oh, I didn't see that coming.
Yes.
Okay.
And boom, you know, you have this great movie where you mix all these characters back together, all these different worlds, and then boom, you got it all together. That would be a great idea.
Like the Resident Evil books that I have, not the movie books, but the books based on the games.
Okay.
They in one book, 3 of them might be together. The next book, they might have somebody else. In the next book, they split up, and they keep changing like that. Like that's the best.
You don't get too much of one character overdosed, and then you put it all together, you know, near the end or at the end. That would be great. I would actually,
that was a good idea, Ken. They should have did that with that. Each character would have had their own movie, and then they all would have came together for like one badass movie at the end.
Yeah, throw them all down. You know, it's just like a good example of that's Doctor Who as a TV series. There was, you know, we've had 11 Doctors now, counting the new one. And no, I'm sorry, we're up to 13 technically.
13 now.
Well, there was supposed to be only X amount, but let's say there was a movie called The First 5 Doctors, or The 5 Doctors, which brought all the previous incarnations. Either each had a commonality, the Doctor character, but each of those Doctor characters was played by a different actor who had a different style, a different personality, but the overall story was they're the Doctor. And then they had a movie where all those different Doctors got together in one big movie, one big run. And that was actually, I can't think of his name, but that was one of his last movies or shows he ever did. But you could do that same concept with many of the different franchises that we've seen. The Resident Evil, you could do that with, you could have done that with any of the well, I don't think you could have done it with like the Nightmare and, you know, the monster movies we were talking about. Well, I guess you could really. I mean, you could do that. You know,
it just takes somebody that gives a damn.
Yeah, exactly. I'm, you know, put all these different little characters together and then, you know, snap them all together in one piece. But again, you have to have good story, good character, and of course now everybody wants some mega star anchor in there. But I think if you have a good enough story and a decent enough, you know, acting staff on there, supporting staff, you could pull off a good movie. You could do it. You could easily do it.
What about Men in Black?
Oh my God, yes.
I think Men in Black could do it too.
Men in Black alone, they could have so many different actors. They don't need Will Smith or Tommy Lee. I mean, they could just go on and, you know, get some mid-range, interesting. Jason Boyega right now is a hot commodity. He's coming out in Pacific Rim 2. He's going to be in Star Wars 7 and 8. Oh, sorry, Star Wars 8 coming out.
John Boyega.
Okay.
He said Jason.
I was like, Jason. I know it didn't sound right, but, you know, you could get some of these mid-range stars that are just now breaking out, getting their start in there, and throw them in a good story and put it together. You could easily do that. You know, I would like to see that. I you know, we've been burned out on a lot of, you know, Tom Cruise. God, you know, we've seen him so many times. It's not even funny. You know, a good example is Adam Driver. You know, Kylo Ren. You know, who the hell is Adam Driver? Never heard of this guy. And then boom, he's in one of the biggest cinematic worlds, you know, there is. But he's also now in Lucky Logan, you know, playing just a little comic character with Channing Tatum.
I want to see that.
I do want to see that one. I kind of got a good laugh out of it, especially hearing James Bond actually talk an American accent. I was like, oh man, I'm sold. Even if it's a cruddy movie, it still looks fun. it still looks fun, and that's why I want to watch it. But I mean, who the hell is Adam Driver? No one would give two craps about Adam Driver because they didn't even know who he was. All you hear is those name brands, but people are getting tired of seeing those movies. Look at Johnny Depp. Look what happened to him. You know, cream of the crop. I'm in every damn movie there is, and then now he's like, he's lucky to be in a movie.
I was like, I kind of think they could have did a good job, a better job with Pirates of the Caribbean if they kind of did that too. Not every movie should have followed Jack Sparrow.
No,
some of the movies. So one movie followed Will Turner if he's doing what he's doing. One movie could have followed Barbosa, and then one movie happens, and then they all come together.
You don't have to keep the same formula, but don't burn us out on a character, and that's exactly what happened to Johnny Depp's character. He was great in the first two, and then after that, it just kind of became old because you knew what to expect. You knew what he was going to do. Give me something good.
Are you go ahead?
Oh yeah, I would like to see after in Pirates of the Caribbean after Will. I don't know which one. I forgot which one was it. After he, was, I guess you would say, chained to that dead ship. What's the name of that ship?
Flying Dutchman.
Yeah, after like what he did afterwards.
Yeah,
and then the other movie. He came back, right? So, like, what he did after he was, changed. I want to see that.
I know what he did. He stayed at the bottom of the ocean while letting his kid put himself in continuous danger looking for him.
But I'm sure he had his own adventure, and he had to deal with some things. So,
you could.
I could do it. Or it like a David Jones origin story or something. Sure, they told us what happened, but how he became a bad guy, and then go to how Barbosa became how he became the way he became, like with the treasure, how him and Jack Sparrow met.
Right, didn't even know he had a daughter, and it turned out he had
This series didn't support that. I'm sorry. I like that.
No, that was an offshoot, like you wouldn't believe it. Like, there was that what? He has a daughter? Come on. And it definitely didn't support it at all. Zero. Yeah, there's some of that. And I think it was just, we need to come up with something to keep the story interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was interesting, but you kind of shot the movie.
We were talking about, of course, there was the obvious, monster movies with King Kong and Godzilla. I was watching a YouTuber named Rambo Ralph for Life, and I like his commentaries. The guy actually got he got a lot of sense behind the stuff he said, but he said something I didn't agree with. He said that, in fact, I don't think it was just him. I think Comic Book Girl 6962 said something along these lines too, talking about how Marvel is the only cinematic universe that's successful. And everybody else should not do it. And I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, all of these different franchises that have the same potential to do that. And it was mostly from The Mummy, because The Mummy bombed.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you can't say that. And I was like, because wait a minute, back in the day, Dracula, the classic movie monsters were the first ones to do the cinematic universe.
And they were successful because we're talking 40 years, not just a few years. 40 plus years.
I like watching them.
And then
classic movie monster.
Godzilla and Gamera and all of that stuff in like the 60s. They did it too. So I'm like, Marvel ain't the only one that can do this. There are plenty of franchises out there that can do this and be successful.
Well, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a movie. I mean, you got several mini-series, TV series that are extremely successful. That are, some are bigger part of pictures, some are standalones. You can't. Yes, they're making. MCU right now is pretty much dominating at least in the comic book world, between Marvel and DC. Right now, they're just taking it. They're mowing DC's butt all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
But again, most of their series of movies are more lighthearted. They're not as darker and grimmer as, I guess you could say, the DC universe is?
I was thinking about that. I was like, people say Marvel seems to be a lot more lighthearted than DC, and
Yes,
like,
it does.
I guess it is but it is serious too. And
yeah,
like,
I mean, but look at a Batman comic and Batman's kicking somebody's butt and blood splattering everywhere.
I'm like,
you see that in Marvel?
Serious, let them be serious. That's how they're going to come with it. Quit comparing it to Marvel, guys.
Well, they're trying. I mean, people are going to compare Marvel and DC always because that's just two rivals.
Because I wanted to do an Avengers, the Avengers movie versus the Justice League movie, and I want to compare like the different characters, the bad guys, the actual story. Because one of the things I was going to say, and I'm going to spoil it now, is even though Loki is a more interesting character, Steppenwolf was a hell of a lot more badass.
Well, yeah. He was pretty badass.
He kicked tail. That's one thing I love about the bad guys in DC. Like, they're ruthless.
Well, yeah, but see, remember, we were just saying DC's a darker series. Look at the comics. Just in the comics alone, I've seen, Batman, you see blood, you see people getting, sliced up and diced. And they kind of, I mean, granted, they're not being very extremely graphic, but, you see some pretty good carnage in there. But then you look at a Marvel comic and look at a similar scene, you barely see a drop of blood. You see him get pounded, but you don't see anything. And even with, like, say, let's go back to Conan, a very brutal comic series. And that's probably one of the few Marvel series that you'll see, like, it's not red though, it's usually black or something close to that, or a bluish color, of splattering and decapitation and dismemberment and stuff like that. You will see that in there, but that is one of the probably one comic I can think of right now in the MCU world that is graphic like that, and that's a regular production comic too. It's not like we're watching Guardians or any of our current MCU characters that we see in the movies. You don't see that happening. You just see the punches and the brutality. Maybe their faces are kind of messed up.
Yeah.
But you never see a punch with blood squirting out anywhere. You don't see people losing body parts very often.
Mm-hmm.
And even when we watch the movies, we see a very great, something that should have been pretty horrible, like when Crossbones blew up.
Yeah.
You all you saw was the explosion and the violence from the explosion, but you didn't see him screaming in agony as he got ready to blow up.
Mm-hmm.
They just kind of moved him off, threw him up, and he blew up.
See, I'm looking at this post here on Polygon. What does it say? Cinematic universes aren't working anymore. What the hell are you talking about?
They're out of their damn mind.
RoboCop and Superman?
No, that was Batman. Hollywood has a cinematic universe problem, and it needs to stop. No, it does not. There are plenty of franchises and series out there that do well, that have the potential to do well. Like right now, Fast and the Furious. I'm not sure about Fast and the Furious. I'm all right with it.
I think they're spun down. I think they're well past done time.
I'm with them as a series, but I don't think like with all the spinoffs and stuff that they. I think they're milking because they don't have like a pre-established. They don't have like a pre-established thing where they're pulling this from. They're just like, okay, we're just gonna make another movie. Okay, we're just gonna make another movie.
We're gonna have another heist with a really fast cars, but we're gonna make them jump out of an airplane this time. Everybody good with that? Yes.
Stopped about the whatever it was supposed to be about in the first beginning. It just stopped because I only got to the second Fast and Furious movie, and I just stopped.
Well, maybe okay. If Fast and the Furious didn't follow the characters the way they did, then yeah, like in the first movie, it was Dom. Dom should have got another movie. Should have been like in the fourth movie. The second movie was Paul Walker's character, and then Paul Walker's character should get another movie. And then one movie they team up, but then, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They didn't. The movies follow different characters. I say first three movies follow different characters. Then the fourth movie they come together. Then they follow different characters. Then the next movie they come together. Like that, I could kind of get behind.
Well, see, that's what DC was doing. We had DC. We got Batman, Superman.
Are you sure?
Yeah. The second one was Too Fast, Too Furious.
No, hold up.
And then that's the one with Paul Walker and Tyrese were in.
Really?
Think about it. Too Fast, Too Furious.
No, I thought the second one was Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift.
No, that's the third one. But if they're to follow that storyline like that, then yeah, Fast and the Furious as a cinematic universe would work. But the entire time it's the same cast over and over and over and over and over.
Just bigger, better stakes each and every time.
Yeah.
Like Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12, Ocean's 13. Minus the gas changes though, but the concept's the same.
Okay, we got 8 minutes, and I'm going to bring up one more concept, and we'll just let it go after that. What about the fairy tale movies?
Like which?
You know how they're making actual more serious versions of like Snow White and the Huntsman.
Oh, okay, the more live action conversions.
You think they could pull a cinematic universe? There's only one series, no, 4 series that I know of that managed to bring those fairy tale characters together and work.
It was good.
It was Once Upon a Time, Shrek, the Fable graphic novel series, and Kingdom Hearts.
And Kingdom Hearts comes out of the anime series.
Mm-hmm.
Well, is that more of a game or an anime series?
I was gonna say a game.
I was just saying all of them.
The like the wolf game that you got.
Yeah, that's based on the Fables.
Okay.
So in fact, it's a prequel. That game's a prequel to the series. But yeah, that's like, what do you think about that? Do you think that they can make a cinematic universe too?
You could.
I think they could, but I think they have to reboot it. Not at this point. The movies are actually made to be standalone.
We got a lot of material there that are out there, and granted, I'm not all into some of the game worlds or anime style worlds, but there you could easily recreate a series. Well, a lot of times that's what they do is they just bring on somebody new to completely restructure it. I mean, you get stuck, like, say, you could probably redo Pirates of the Caribbean, but everybody's stuck on Johnny Depp. And if you would try to redo that series, everybody would be looking for the Johnny Depp character. You know, look, let's see Captain Sparrow, and they're going to look for that. You're going to have to kind of change the story and change the characters enough that people will be reinvigorated and reenthralled with a TV series or a movie series and join back in the bandwagon and get on there. And see, that's what a good example, like say Stargate. When Stargate came out in the early 90s, the movie, there was so much backstory that you didn't really get it. You just got this brief hinkling. And then they brought the story back with a new character, main character, to kind of rehash the story a little bit. But then we went into a very expanded universe of the Stargate world. In fact, you had Stargate SG-1, Stargate Atlantis. You had all these side series. And Discovery. Not Discovery, I'm sorry. Destiny. Each happens in their own worlds, but at different points in time. And you had new characters that you saw in the movies, but you didn't see anywhere else. You know, they didn't bring they didn't bring James Spader back. They didn't bring
Was Kurt Russell in that movie?
Kurt Russell was in the original movie, but they replaced him with MacGyver. I just spaced his name, unfortunately. But, you had these series like that where you could, and it brought more interesting stuff to it. It brought more, we knew the character, what they were supposed to be, but the personality of the new character, the new person taking over that series was what caught my attention and kept on things going. So you could easily do that if you have the right people, again, the right story, the right people, the right direction of where they want to go with that series.
Hey, Amanda.
He's saying hello.
Yeah.
She's like, oh my God, I'm on camera. I can't believe it.
I didn't walk out of the bathroom naked because I was about to.
You're lucky. And it would have been on live, too.
Why is the dog on my bed?
The dog's on the bed because he's being bad.
Every light in the house is on there.
Well, anywho, we're about to hit that magic button on time, too. I think we got about a minute or two.
Well, we'll just go ahead and wrap this on up. Any final thoughts, y'all?
No, not for me.
Okay.
I think it was a good discussion today, and then comparing universes and worlds, extended universes, and expanded universes. It was a pretty good discussion today.
Yeah, get into it. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up, people. Thank you again for checking out our video. We greatly appreciate it. I thank Ken and Madam B for joining me here, making this episode very engaging and making it fun and entertaining. We hope you guys enjoyed what we were talking about. In the comment section below, let us know any particular specific franchise that you would believe will make a great cinematic universe. We are interested to hear your thoughts on this. Be sure to hit that like, share, subscribe, and that notification button to get the best of what's going on here on the Narik Chase channel. And again, join us next week around the same time to get another great podcast discussion. All right then, guys. Narik Chase and crew signing out.
Bye.
See you later.